Today is, I'm supposed to be recording this on February 22nd, which is Monday. However, due to extenuating circumstances, and yes, I know I said that word wrong, I am posting this late, though when I get it on YouTube it might say that I posted it on Monday. Not really sure. So I apologize for that, and punish me if you will, but I was locked out of my room this evening because I left my keys in my room because I'm dumb and my roommate had rehearsal forever. So anyways, I'm going to read the winning story first. I still don't know what the prize is, but this story was written by Anna, and it is entitled Janet. It is longer than 500 words, but I got several entries that were longer than the specified limit, so I didn't hold anything against them. So anyways, I'm going to read this so I get done in time. Janet had always loved her mother's shoes, not because of their high fashion or glamour or expense, or relative attraction of any sort, but rather the sense of satisfaction and delight that she knew her mother gained from such prizes. They were all purchased at thrift stores or yard sales, buried deep in the back of a shelf or at the bottom of a box. The sneakers of bastardly children and mistreated wives. Each pair had its own story, but no pair's story was special enough to be heard by any other voice than Janet's mother. As a toddler, Janet would pore over her mother's sneakers, carefully examining the all too noticeable fades in the creases of wear and tear, poking her fingers through every hole or rip she could find, and tugging on the tongues as though she could command them to speak. Janet soon applied this method of tugging to the family dog's floppy ears, and found that the old Cocker Spaniel's yelp of pain and surprise was much more audible than any pair of sneakers. When Janet was 7, her mother died. The cigarette smoke had charred her lungs darker than the dirt on her shoes, and emphysema was far too expensive an illness to try and cure with a waitress's wages. Janet's father abandoned the children 1 year later, for unknown reasons that seemed all too familiar to the surrounding community. But before he left, Janet's father had placed his work boots on the kitchen table. Attached to the soles were tiny notes that read, "I love you, and I'm sorry," respectively. He was hit by a car and killed at Atlanta, Georgia, a few weeks later. The city's electric grid had malfunctioned, and all the stoplights turned green. The children never learned of his death. When Child Protective Services came for Janet, they told her she could pack up 1 suitcase for clothes and an additional box for her favorite belongings. She filled both with as many pairs of her mother's sneakers as possible. Janet and her 2 siblings waited with CPS for hours. One of Janet's hands was clasped to her sister's, the other wrapped around a shoe, so tightly that her knuckles and fingernails turned 2 shades of white and tinged in 3 different places. Janet's youngest sibling was an infant boy, who was whisked away to an adoption agency. He was placed with a young couple unable to conceive on their own, and grew up living a rich and vivid life. In high school, he was granted the nickname Scabbers, after losing his big toe in a shop class accident. But Janet and her younger sister were placed in the foster care system of southern Tennessee. Excuse me. They were not lucky enough to stay together after the first set of pseudo-parents, and each new home for Janet meant inadvertently losing or letting go of another pair of her mother's shoes. By the age of 15, Janet had landed in a foster home with 4 other boys, all older than herself. Her remaining pair of sneakers had, at one point, shown a vibrant red, but over the years had faded to a dark pink color that reminded Janet and the boys of a bloody baby's vomit. The boys were well known for committing terrible acts of rowdiness and roughhousing, and soon realized that Janet's sneakers made a reasonable substitute for a football. The boys also quickly realized just how terrible their throws and catches were. Janet was mortified, and her body shook with disgust as she watched the last remnants of her mother spiral over the fence, landing with a splash on the neighbor's dog's water dish. Janet made a mad dash around the edge of the property line. The no outside entry and trespassers will be shot on sight signs posted throughout the yard's trees looked like red and yellow Christmas lights to Janet as she bolted across the grass and tackled the large English Mastiff, whose slobber engulfed the rips and creases of the old, faded sneaker. Janet's tomboy haircut stuck to her face as a river of tears plastered her cheeks, the white knuckles of her clenched fists beating at the nose of the dog, who refused to release his grip on the shoe. Her tears progressed into screams as her punches grew harder and less accurate, until her screams were reduced to tears once more when the mastiff, who had grown tired of this girl's nonsense, had simply walked away. She sat in the mud mourning the loss of her sneaker for what had seemed like hours, but truly never broke minutes. All was lost, and no hope remained. Janet felt the weight of her God-forsaken, dismantled, putrid world come crashing down upon her shoulders, and her nose began to bleed. She felt like quite the fool when she finally noticed the tall man standing over her, leering down at her tattered and pathetic frame. He offered his hand to Janet, and Janet accepted, grateful to be pulled out of the mud. His name was Mr. Cloakson. His house was large and extravagant. Mr. Cloakson's maid washed the mud from Janet's chains and let the girl wear an old pair of sweatpants while they dried. Janet was both humbled and curious at the generosity of Mr. Cloakston, who was both intrigued and curious at his neighbor's foster child's noticeable obsession with raggedy sneakers. Janet sat at Mr. Cloakson's table. Above her on the wall hung a taxidermist replica of a large swordfish. The words "Carpe Diem" were engraved in gold below the fish, and Janet questioned the authenticity of a carpfish with such a long pointy nose. For both the first and last time in her young, absorbent life, Janet told her story. Her lip had never ceased its violent quivers, and she began to cry again the moment she mouthed the words "Mom, sneakers." Her tears formed an ocean of sorrow for Mr. Cloakson and his swordfish, whose riptide current caught and drowned all of them. But Janet soon learned that some seas forgive, and the depths of the ocean, too, have their beauties. For Mr. Cloakson, as it turns out, was a fashion designer for the Sears department store. He specialized in sneakers, and his feet were the same size as Janet's. The end. If I'm allowed to say the end, it doesn't say that. But. So, this movie is going to be extremely long, so I'm going to wrap it up. I apologize for it being long, but what can I say? It was a good story. Sad and cute and whatnot all at the same time. So anyways, quick talk about my life. I went home this weekend. I was home. Same old, same old. I did laundry and tried to, figure out my life, which I'm not sure about right now. I painted my nails. They're kind of coming off right now, but I think they're cute. And last night I got to talk to Caleb for like an hour and a half, which was really, really nice. And we video chatted, so I actually got to see him, which was also awesome because I haven't seen him because he's over in Thailand. What else? Next weekend I'm coming down to IU, which should be really exciting and fun. Excuse me. And I think that's pretty much it. So, I'm sorry this was long, and again, punish me if you guys wish, but there you are. Yeah. I love you guys, and I will be seeing some of you next weekend, and I think that's it. There might be a guest next week, because I might record it while I'm at IU and see if someone wants to do my vlog with me. Because I feel less awkward when I'm not just talking to a camera, when I actually have someone to converse with. Alright, so I will stop making awkward eyebrow suggestive movements, even though it's funny, and end this before it's too long. Alright, I love you guys, and bye!